Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Life Inner Show. I'm your host, Jason Wojo. On the Life Inner Show, we help people make more, work less, and create lives and businesses they love. I am joined by my Polish co-host, Polish Peter. What's up, dude?
Hey, man. So today we are going to be talking to guys who knows how to actually do stuff around the house.
Yeah, man. And he's made a business about it. Yeah. That's, listen, man, I am a budding handyman. Like, I have a ton of tools in my garage that my wife is like, why do you have these? You don't even use. I'm like, I may need them someday. And so
Yes.
I will not, I got all kinds of stuff, man. I love tinkering.
It's for the looks.
Hey, man, I mean, listen, it's just a manly thing to have tools, right? You just need tools. It boosts your testosterone levels, I'm pretty sure.
So what you're saying, you're a tool.
No, man. I have tools. No. Listen, our guest is Dan Perry. So I ran across this guy, and we'll talk about this in the episode, on YouTube. He has a business that he helps handymen create real businesses that really it's just more than just going to fix something, right? It's an actual business. And so he teaches people how to do this, and he's done it himself.
Yeah. And that's, one of the cool things about this particular interview, we asked him about different lessons because he's been doing over the past 10 years.
Yeah.
So what are some of the lessons that you learned about your business? And one of the things that I want you to consider is this conversation can apply to any kind of business, really.
Totally.
It doesn't have to be a handyman. He uses the handyman examples, but he talks about pricing, how you price it up. Pricing strategies so you don't go broke basically doing your business, and all the different lessons. So
marketing,
check it out.
fear. It's a great episode. Awesome episode. Yep. Let's dive in right now. Here's our interview with Dan Perry of Handyman Startup. Dan, what's up, man? Welcome to Life Inner Show.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Dude, I am super psyched to get you on here. As we were talking before we started recording, I ran across you. So I got a new house and I'm looking to seal the grout. And there you are, man. Like, there's like, hey, how to seal grout for beginners, DIY. I'm like, okay, this, and then, dude, and then you were really, I mean, you explained it. Fantastic. I saw a bunch of other videos, and these guys were nowhere near as eloquent or clear. And you did a really good job with the video. And then at the end, I was surprised that you're like, hey, listen, if you're interested in making a business as a handyman, you want to do really well with it. Like, go to this site and do all these things. And you kind of made an offer for your handyman. What I took as being like, hey, how to start a handyman business and do really well with that offer. And so I had to reach out to you. I wanted to hear the story of like how someone goes from just being a handyman to really running a real business and actually helping other people do that. But before we even get to that, man, we just started talking like you weren't always a handyman. Like, where did this whole thing start for you, and how did you even get into that field?
So it all started when I was in my engineering job.
Engineering? Whoa, okay.
Yeah. So a
lot of people start with engineering and then something happens and they're like, boom.
Yeah. So I got a job out of college, and I kind of thought like, once I got a job, it was going to be just, I was just going to float through the rest of life. It was going to be happily ever after kind of situation. Got this engineering job. And like the first day I was like, oh, this is something's off here. I don't know if I like sitting at this desk. And I ended up working that job for a couple of years. And then somebody recommended the 4-hour work week to me. And that, like, I was already really unhappy with my job. But after I read that book, I was like, oh man, there's something way better out there. I cannot do this anymore. So then I kind of went through this situation where I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what kind of business to start. And I hated my job so much. I just hated it every day. Every day I'd wake up and be like, when is the next, like, how many days till Friday? That's the first thing I would think as soon as I woke up. How many days? Okay, it's Wednesday. I got 2 more days. We'll do this day. Just really hate it. So anyway, I tried to figure out a business, could never do it. Finally, I just decided like, hey, I hate this job so much. I can't go in another day. I quit the job. Didn't know what I was going to do. So later on, I kind of started listening to podcasts. Like, I got to start a business. I know I don't want another job. I know I want some freedom. I want to be able to go snowboarding when I want to go snowboarding, if it's really good powder, or mountain biking if it's, if my buddies are going mountain biking. And so I started listening to podcasts about online business and got into I followed a couple people, and then I bought some courses, and I was like, oh, I'm gung ho on this. I'm going all in, all my time. And then I realized, I was like, I don't know. What am I going to do online business? Because it was kind of the information model of like, teaching.
Okay.
I had no idea. I was like, nobody's going to listen to me. I don't have any life experience. So then I kind of like scrapped that idea, refunded the course. And then I finally settled on the idea of a handyman business because I worked with my hands. I was good with my hands. I didn't have a ton of experience there, but I knew I could figure it out. I'd done a bunch of projects in my house. I was watching YouTube videos, and the YouTube videos kind of helped me through it. And, I kind of bounced back and forth on this idea. And finally I was like, all right, I'm doing it. Handyman business. And then as I was starting the handyman business, I was trying to find guidance on it. And I bought all the books on handyman business that were out at the time. And I read them. And I was still like, this isn't telling me what to do in what order. Like, this isn't good guidance here. Like, it's telling you kind of like general, kind of generic stuff that you're kind of like, yeah, but like, what's like it's like tactical, do this, then do this, then do this kind of stuff. And so I was like, well, that's my idea. So then I repurchased the course that I had purchased about building an online business. And as I started my handyman business, I wrote articles about what I was doing, starting a handyman business. And this was like 10 years ago. So this is like started early 2012 when I posted my first blog post. And, there wasn't a lot of people blogging at that point. Like, online business there was a lot of people doing it, but not as many as there are now. And so I just kept up with it. I was posting a lot of articles. I would work all day on my handyman business. And then at night from like 7 to 9 PM, I'd be writing articles and posting those. I did that for a while, and I slowly built up the business to the point where I had a decent following. My handyman business was doing really well, and I kind of just kept going from there.
So let me just go back to a little bit here. We have a lot of people that are like, they hate their job, similar to you did as well. They can't imagine another day, another visit to the cubicle or whatever it is. How did you actually choose the handyman business though? Because one thing I get people always ask me is like, hey, I don't know what to do. I don't have any skills. I don't know what my passion is or my purpose is. Like, how do I pick? Like, what are some of the things that you like weighed as you made the decision to go into this? Because it also doesn't sound like your dad, it's not like you trailed around your dad your entire life as a handyman or like you learned this stuff from a young age. You had to develop this. It sounds like. How did you, like, what went through your mind and how did you make that decision?
Well, I first want to say it's not an easy decision. It's not like I made that decision after like 15 minutes of thinking, you know what I mean? Which there's a little bit of struggle in that kind of going back and forth. Honestly, the way I came about the idea in the first place was or 100 Jobs for Dummies or something like that. I don't know. It was one of the Dummies books, and it was like Careers for Dummies, I think it was called. And I just went through that book and analyzed every single option that I could find, and then kind of made a list of the ones that weren't terrible, and then was kind of thinking through them. And like, a lot of them didn't make sense to me. A lot of the businesses, I don't understand that. But then the handyman business, it just seemed like so tangible right now. And, just like everybody, I kind of like instant gratification. I wanted something I could make money on quickly.
Yeah.
I liked other business models, but or areas of, careers or whatever. But I was like, I don't want to go back to school. I don't want this to be 10 years from now where I'm finally doing what I want to do. I want to have a business right now that can start generating some income. That's not going to cost a lot of money to start up. That kind of fits my, my natural talents. Cause I do work well with my hands, shop class when in high school. I have an engineering background, so I kind of know how the physical world works pretty well. And I have a good idea that I could, I might not know, like you said, I didn't follow around my dad. I didn't have a mentor or anything. Really, YouTube was my mentor. Literally, I would watch YouTube videos and figure it out. And like, okay, yeah, I think I could do this. And, but yeah, I mean, it fit my aptitudes. It kind of fit the requirements of low cost. It can make money quickly. And ultimately I kind of figured, I was like, I could do anything with this. If I want to turn it into a construction business, I can like kind of go bigger. If I want to hire people, I could do that. Like, if I just want to specialize in something specific, I can do that. So there was a lot of different ways I could go. And mostly, actually, I forgot this one because it's been so long, but I did not want to have to work at a desk. That was one of the main things. I didn't want to be stuck behind a computer all day. So
that, dude, that's fascinating to me. And I what I also hear is a couple of things, and correct me if I misspeak here. So you gave it some serious thought and consideration. It sounds like you have all these different angles, like, so it checked all these boxes for you. And it sounds like you almost had like almost like a matrix of like, hey, here's my criteria. What fits this? And I love that you basically started this thing from scratch. It's not even like, you really like, you knew what you probably had some natural skills and talents in, and then you just did it. And like learning it off YouTube, dude, that's amazing. That's awesome. So you start this business, like, and how does it go? Like, how does it start off? Like what's like, is it as good as you thought it was going to be, or is it way harder or easier? Like, what was that like?
It was kind of both, actually. I mean, like certain things, like trying to figure out my pricing was really challenging because, when you're new to business and the psychology of pricing gets pretty complicated, all your limiting beliefs about what people will pay and how much you're worth personally, all that kind of stuff kind of gets in the way a lot. So that was really hard. And I ended up undercharging quite a bit on all my first jobs and just like really wasting my time, like doing hard, like working hard and making almost no money on several jobs. But then because of this course that I took on online marketing before I decided to start the handyman business, I don't know if we back up there, I knew, at least I had a pretty good feeling that this same stuff would apply to a handyman business that was applying to building an online business, like an expert business. Mm-hmm. So I did the same thing that I would have done with that. And I applied it to my handyman business. So I built a website and I wrote some blog posts on it and got some traffic that way. And like, I looked really young. I was only 28 at the time when I quit. And a lot of my customers would say like, what are you in high school? Are you in high school? Like they didn't think I owned the business.
Did your parents bring you here? Like, how did you get here? Like,
yeah. Like, are you the only guy? You're the guy? You sure you're the guy?
You're not the guy's kid?
Like, yeah, I'm the guy, And it's like, they thought I was like in high school or something. A couple of people actually asked me that. So I didn't have like that kind of authority that maybe a 40-year-old guy that's like looks the part, who looks like he's been working with his hands all his life. I didn't look like that at all. So I had to use my online marketing to position me with expert status. And I did that with the internet and a good website and a professional branding and all that stuff. And because I did that, that made the biggest difference for me, because I was generating automatic leads. So like, like all these automated systems we build for online businesses, I was generating more leads than I could handle within like a couple of years in business. Wow. And so I was able to like test higher prices without being scared that I was going to lose jobs. And it just worked out really well. And that's kind of what I teach. That is what I teach to people who want to start this business now, is the online marketing part of it, how to get your name out there in a way that positions you as a high paid, like high quality handyman, instead of just like cheap labor that they're going to hire you and not really respect your time. So
that's interesting. And so what I'm also hearing is like, this is a strategy that anyone can use in their business, and that probably is frequently ignored or neglected, when in fact, like this could be a fantastic kind of tool to help you not only establish your pricing, but get customers and really kind of, move to that next level. When you did that, were you already you already had created the blog, you already had the content. When did you make the decision to show other people? Was that right from the start? You're like, hey, I'm just going to share what I'm doing, and then I'm going to actually monetize this later, or I'm going to monetize it now. Like, when did you make the shift from, or was it simultaneous that you decided you were going to make this an online business? Like, what was your thought pattern there? Is it like just that you don't have to be out in the field with your hands all the time, you can generate revenue with other people, or like what caused you to get on that path?
Yeah. So like I said, I wanted to start an online business before I decided to start a handyman business, but then I didn't have anything to teach. I didn't have any expertise. And then, so when I started my handyman business, I saw that there wasn't a lot of good advice. There wasn't really good help there. So I was like, this is what I'm going to do. So I had intentions of selling courses from the very beginning, for sure. I don't necessarily think that was the best way to go about it. I probably would have been better off just focusing on my handyman business, getting really good at that, and then kind of doing this. But it kind of worked out because I was able to share it as I learned it, which honestly made it more powerful in a way, because I was learning this thing, I would implement it, and then I would teach it in a blog post. And then it was just, when you do that, you have beginner's mind at the same time that you're teaching it. So you're learning it better, but you're also, know what is valuable information. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're like teaching it to yourself, like, oh man, I just got this really good information, where like, if you're an expert, you might be like, people already know that, right?
Yeah. That's so true, man. Like you're in the trenches, you're like testing it, doing it, versus somebody who could overlook that if they've been doing it for a long time, because it seems second nature at this point. That's a really good point.
Yeah. And some of my best content was during that time. So, kind of captured that, but it's been refined quite a bit now.
Gotcha. So how has the business changed to like right now? Like, so are you 50-50 are you still doing handyman stuff? And then you got the coaching and the courses and stuff? Or are you doing one or the other? How does that look?
Right now I am largely focused on YouTube. I haven't been posting a lot of videos lately, but that's where I'm going to focus my energy now. But I do handyman services still, just because I enjoy it. It's actually a really cool business, because you get to meet new people. You get to work with your hands. Like, you have that instant gratification of like, hey, I just built that, or I just fixed that. And like, the customer is paying you with a smile. They're like, oh, good job. You're like, oh, thanks so much for the help. Like, here's some money. And you're like, even though you're not making millions of dollars, it's still like, the psychology of it, like it's a very good life. It's a good life. It's simple. It's good life. But I'd say like 90% of my business effort, making money effort, is definitely with the online stuff, helping people, just because I have kids and I, like having a little more freedom and stuff. So
yeah, man, we're totally about that too. Like, so for instance, like, Life and Air, our model is, like I was telling you earlier, we do live events, which requires me to be there. Now I love it. Like, I love getting to teach people and share. It's one of my favorite things in the world to do. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't want to do that every single week, every single, year for infinity, like, and so eternity. And so like, this is where we have coaching as well, because it's much more scalable. And, if people are buying courses, that's something. Now, are you more on the course side, or are you more on like the one-on-one or mentoring side of things?
I mainly focus on courses.
Okay.
Because I mean, I try to make my courses good enough where nobody really needs that.
Oh, okay.
And that's kind of my goal, is like, this is all you need right here. Like, but I do still need, people do still need a little bit of hand holding, and I have done coaching in the past.
Yep.
But yeah, gotcha. I don't focus a lot on that.
And with your kind of stuff now, are you actually teaching the tech side of like, hey, here's how to fix this? Or are you more helping them with, hey, here's how you position yourself. Here's how you price your offer here, and those kinds of the business.
Yeah. So with handymanstartup.com, which is my website, that's all pretty much any course I have there. It's all about the business. It's like, here's how to start your business. Here's how to price your services. Here's how to market your services. I'm not teaching. Most of the people who I'm teaching how to start this business, they have more skills than I do in terms of home repairs and stuff. They might have been working in the industry for 20 years or, whatever. Like, they usually have more skills than I do there. But with YouTube and some of the articles on my website, I teach things that I kind of like figured out myself, that I kind of like, did a bunch of research and have done the repairs a lot. And I'll teach those videos, like how-to videos for DIYers, just as a good way to get attention, just as a good marketing avenue. Yeah. And, I do make money on YouTube as well from those videos. So,
oh, awesome.
Yeah.
So listen, I got a couple of questions for you, because you said earlier that you've been at this for 10 years now?
Yes.
So you probably learned quite a bit about business and handyman business and all that kind of stuff. So what are some of the biggest lessons you've gotten out of growing your business over the years?
I think that one of the biggest lessons that I teach people is that you absolutely have to charge what it's worth for you to do the job. Like if you get a job, if you quote a job, like let's say it's a kitchen remodel or even just a door repair, something simple. If they say yes, and you're not happy about putting that job on your schedule, you probably didn't charge enough, because like so many people let the question in their mind think, oh, how much would I be willing to pay for this job? Right. Instead of how much is it, like, how much do I need to charge to run a profitable business? And that's for like pretty newbie levels, but that's mostly who I'm teaching is people who are just new to business. But you never want to ask the question of how much you're willing to pay for a job, for a repair, because you probably wouldn't hire anybody in the first place. That's why you became Handy. So
Right.
You're not your ideal customer. Your opinion on what you should charge and what is expensive is absolutely obsolete and worthless. That's probably one of the biggest lessons for pricing. And then others is like, what's that?
So listen, before you jump into the other lesson, because I think this is a really important thing, because a lot of people are struggling with this whole pricing model. And I think what you just said is really important for people to catch. It's not what you would pay, is what your ideal client would pay. And I think when you mentioned like the reaction that you have, like you quote somebody this and they automatically say yes, and you're like, oh, maybe should I have done it higher? Like it's like, you know, inside of you kind of sense it. There's something is not off about that. It tells you that you're not charging high enough. And there is a lot of scarcity behind that. The people are like, well, if I lose customers, what if I'm, not good enough, and all that kind of stuff. So I love that you kind of looked at that particular aspect of it. And it's a gradual thing, is it? I mean, have you, over the years, how much do you think you've raised your prices?
Well, when I started at $25 an hour because I had no confidence in my ability to, I thought that's what I was worth. And then as I kind of dialed in my pricing, like sometimes I'd make $200 an hour doing repairs.
Right.
So usually averaging about $100 an hour for repairs average, but that kind of evens out, like some jobs more, some jobs less.
Got it. Hey, before you move on to the other lessons, Dan, like talk to me about like, what Peter said, it stuck out to me. Like when you raised your prices, was it just a little bit at a time? And then you're like, okay, let's see if I go from $25 to $28 an hour. Let's see if I lose any jobs. Okay, let's go from 28 to 32. Or did you just say, hey, you know what? Let's go to 40. Let's see what happens, or 50. Like how did you approach that?
Yeah. So at first it was kind of that incremental change. Like I went from 25 and then I went to $40 an hour. And then I had this customer who's like, and I told her I was like $40 an hour for my services. And then she's like, well, yeah, maybe you should. And I was like, I'm probably going to raise them to 50, soon, trying to get some business or trying to like just get customers and stuff. She's like, yeah, or even 60. And I was like, what? Okay, 60? And then like I talked to I had some really good customers that were kind of helping me out, because I was new and like I didn't like try to hide the fact that I was new to business. So some people that hired me were good at business and they kind of like, well, plumbers and stuff, they charge like 78, 80 bucks an hour. I don't see why you couldn't get the same, as long as you're offering a high quality service. And like, even then, and so I went from like 25 to 40 to 60. And that was when I charged hourly, but then I kind of developed some other pricing strategies and tested some other pricing strategies, like, flat rate or quoting jobs by the job instead of by the hour. And then that was how I was able to get up higher,
Oh, so you got away from the hourly and you do it by quotes now?
Yeah. And I still think hourly is the best for somebody getting started, because if you try to quote a job, you're going to lose money. It's going to take you 2 to 3 times as long as you think it is. And even though you think you're making a higher hourly rate, you're going to waste a bunch of time trying to figure out how much you should charge. And then it's going to take longer than you thought anyway. So
I start
hourly.
Let me tell you, I can every home project I've ever done has done that exact same thing. It's always 2 to 3 to 4 times as much. Like
I mean, that's called the planning fallacy. Even if you've done something 20 times.
No, he's just hard learner, man. This guy doesn't learn. That's all there's to it, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
You must have done a really good YouTube video, because if
I could do it, man, yeah, it was outstanding.
That's your best estimate. If he can do it, then your videos are really good.
That's awesome.
So listen, before we move on to the next lesson, I have one more question about this, because I think a lot of people don't believe, like when I talk about it, some of my students or whatever, as you increased your prices and you went up higher, did you get better quality clients?
People would respect me more, yes. And the people who would, not be like, some people just wouldn't hire me, right? They just be like, oh, okay, that's too much, and they hang up. But the people who are going to pay it, I did get better clients typically.
Did you see a big drop? Because, the other thing I hear is like, hey, if I increase my prices, but if I double my prices, I can still lose half of my people and I'm still making the same amount of money. So I just have to lose less than half of my customers or potential customers, and I make more money. Did you notice a significant drop off in the number of people that hired you, or was that not as dramatic as you thought?
Yeah, I had plenty of customers. So no, I didn't have a drop off. And it was really weird when I would say, my rate or how much the job costs. They'd be like, oh yeah, great. When can you start? And I'd be like, oh, okay.
You're like, I should have said scary higher number.
But yeah, it's funny because people don't know how much things should cost.
Yeah.
They don't know any more than you do. Like that's the funny thing about handyman pricing is like, you're so worried about oh, this seems really expensive. Is this the right amount? It's like, if you don't know what the right amount is, your customer definitely doesn't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's a great point right there.
So yeah, I forgot what your question was. I kind of got sidetracked there, but
if you saw a huge drop in the number of people that hired you.
No, I don't see if any no drop. I would say there was still people who thought it was. I mean, some people thought $40 an hour was too expensive, and then other people were like $60 an hour. Great, yeah. When can you start? 65.
Mm-hmm.
I've had since I've been consulting and teaching these courses, I have a lot of people write me testimonials about like, hey, I took your program. I doubled my rates and I'm busier as a result. That happens. I get these emails all the time where people thought they were at the limit of what they could charge. They took my course, they followed it, they raised their rates, and then they became busier all the time. That's a very common story.
That's awesome.
I agree. What other lessons you got for us?
Well, the other one is to, specifically for the handyman business, right? Is you can't have an aversion to marketing and sales. A lot of handyman who they just want to repair houses. They just want to fix things. And so they kind of like let and then what'll happen is, they'll let their friends and family know. And then all their friends and family have all this work that they have on their house. Like, oh, great, you're starting a handyman business. Oh yeah, I can't find a handyman I trust. So then they hire them. And then like word of mouth kind of snowballs. And they'll get to this stage where they're just like, man, I'm crushing it. I don't even need to build a website. I don't even need to do these things. But what happens is they'll often, like, that might be during spring or summer, and then winter comes and all of a sudden their schedule's empty, or they work through all this backlog of work that their friends and family has. And all of a sudden they're like, what happened to all the demand? And it slows down. So if you don't focus on marketing, even if you can get customers quickly with word of mouth, if you don't have that marketing where it's generating new leads that don't know your business, there's a couple things that happen. Number one, you have this kind of boom or bust situation where some days some weeks it's super busy and some weeks it's your schedule's empty. But also it's hard to have the confidence to increase your rates because everything's based on word of mouth. And if let's say you piss off this one customer, like you disappoint one customer because you raised your rates, now you're worried, you're like, oh, I can't raise my rates because if they don't like that rate, they're not going to recommend me to their friends anymore. And they might tell their friends that I'm now getting greedy and then they're not going to hire me. And so it's just like the psychology, even though that's not necessarily the case, that kind of psychology plays into it and it adds to the fear. But when you're generating more customers than you can possibly handle, and you see the amount of demand there is for your services, there's no better confidence booster to help you raise your rates than that. So as much as it seems like you might not need to focus on these things, it's essential for the long-term success of your business, at least from my perspective.
Yeah,
That's
I will
huge.
tell you this, man. When you talk about when it comes to marketing, it's not just handyman business. I mean, any kind of skill-based kind of a business, when whatever is going on in the business, they tend to leave marketing off to the side. I just want to do my thing, and marketing is the lifeblood of that business. You know what I mean? And it snowballs. And like you just talked about, right? If you get more clients, all of a sudden you feel more confident. All of a sudden you charge more. All of a sudden you help more people. All of a sudden you start building your business, right? And these things snowball as you were going on. You talked about fear a few times too in this, because I'm sure during this 10 years, you probably had some, call it failures, right? Or moments where it seemed like, you're in a valley, right? Those kinds of moments. How did you handle that? How did you get out of that?
You mean when like my business isn't doing as well as I want it to do, or it's like, right, like sales have gone down for a couple months or something? Yeah,
you have valleys, right? You always in business, you have peaks and you have valleys, and things are not going so well. How you get through that time so you get to the next, stage? You don't give up. How you not do that?
That is, I think one of the best things that has helped me get through those stages is when I'm when I'm giving people advice, I'm often thinking of like, what advice would I give somebody in this situation? And so anytime I'm going through a struggle, I'm like, this is an opportunity for content, because I'm like, I'm struggling with this. I know I'm not the only one. And so I'll write and I'll write about it. And then I'll write, and it, like, through writing about it, it gives me perspective. It gives me like that, I kind of step out of the immediate situation of like, oh man, like everything's crumbling, and be like, this has happened before. Like I've had months where sales are way down, and then like you think, oh, this is over. My business is failing. Everything's going to go away. And then it doesn't. And that's just a valley, as you said. But I didn't really have any specific strategies other than like, I have kind of developed some self-management systems for myself, because like that's one of the most important systems in my business is managing myself, because just like everybody, I'm attracted to instant gratification and taking the easy path and like avoiding pain and just seeking pleasure, all those things. So like, I also know that I just have to make sure that I continue to show up, so I always have accountability for that. Like I'll set a thing, like if I don't work at least 8 hours on this project per week for the next 3 months, because I'll usually set like a 3-month system. If I don't do that, if I don't show up and do that work, then I have to, like, I don't know. My wife wants me to paint the banister at my house. I really don't want to do that. It's really tedious and boring. But if I don't show up and do that work,
look up on a video on YouTube and send her to one of the videos and say, hey, honey, check out this video.
Exactly. But if I don't do that work and show up and do the work, I have to do that project. So it's like, that's a little bit of motivation just to make sure I continue to show up.
That's great.
It's little stuff.
That is great. Well, hey man, I know we're running short on time here. This has been awesome, man. I love that what you've done, what you've taken. Tell people that want to learn more about what you're doing, where they can go and where they should find you.
So the best place to go is handymanstartup.com. If you're interested in the whole handyman business, if you think that's a good fit for your skills and interests. And I have over 100 free articles there. Really good stuff. Check that out. Learn about it. Like, get a feel for it. Read the comments. There's some really good stuff there. And I think if you're still interested beyond that, like, jump on my email list, because there's content I share there that I don't share anywhere else. But that's handymanstartup.com. And that's the best place to go.
Awesome. Well, hey, dude, on behalf of our audience and Peter, myself, thanks for being on Life in Your Show, man.
Thanks so much for having me.
So listen, so this was a pretty interesting episode because one of the things that I've heard and talk about is a lot of the things that we talk about in life and everything, right? When we first started transitioning from something that he really hated, the engineering job,
dude,
right?
yeah, right.
Think about it, a lot of the people who come into our life and their circles is start with something like that, and then how you transition to something new. And he has set himself up for criteria, what he wants it to be and what he doesn't want it to be. Like he was very clear on, I don't want to sit behind the desk. And he was clear on what he wanted to do. So he started kind of creating that vision for himself in his life.
Dude, this was a super relevant episode. And like, quite frankly, like I found myself resonating a lot with it too. Cause I had a job, right? And actually, I mean, a lot of Life Hater people have jobs at some point. Now, some of the people that come into Life Hater love their job and they want to keep it. But I'd say the vast majority want the freedom to run their own business, to be their own boss, to do their own thing. And so this was super cool. And I something he said too is like, I think a lot of times, like until you hate your job, you're going to put up with it. And so he kind of reached this point where he's like, I can't do this anymore. And then I love the process that he went through where he kind of like, dude, whatever it was, 100 jobs for dummies, right? Like what a cool idea, but also like, super like, just a concrete way to start looking at, if you don't know what you're going to do, let's see what's out there. Right. So we just did some research, and I love how he put together this idea list of, here's the criteria that I want. Like, I need to do this, not this. I don't want to be a desk, whatever. And he put this together, this list, and here's what he settled on. And then he ran with it. So that was super cool. And I thought it was also really cool that he didn't have, a lot of people I think make a jump into things that they are already good at and they've already expressed proficiency in. And like, maybe they're, like I said, like their dad was a contractor and they've been trailing around their entire life, or, their mom did this. And so they already had that experience, but he kind of like started from zero, really. I mean, he's good with his hands. That was a skill, but he really learned this as he went. And I thought it was really cool that he did that. And also that he kind of documented it too, and has all this stuff and tracked that journey throughout the business cycles.
Yeah, one of the other good takeaways that I got about this episode, as he was talking about pricing, because a lot of people are struggling with them when they're having their own businesses. And the thing he said is like, don't price it based on what you would pay. Price it based on what your ideal client that wants to pay is going to pay. Because that's what the big fallacy is for a lot of people. It's like, I don't want to raise the prices because I don't think they're going to do this. I have conversations about those things with my wife.
Yeah.
She's a, professional like hairdresser in a high-end salon and raising the prices. Yeah. And every single time she rose prices, I mean, she hasn't seen as much of a fallout from clients as she thought it would. She's actually making more money.
So 2 points there, man. One is like, it's so funny that he said it. He's like, don't, because you're going to pay less because you can do it yourself. Your wife can do her own hair. If you're a bookkeeper, you can do your own books. Like if, whatever it is, you're already good at it. So you're going to undervalue it just by the nature of you already having the skills. And so that was a really powerful lesson. And then secondly, as well as like, is there may be some attrition when you increase your rates, but two things that people never think of. One is if your increased rates, do the math on this. And I gave this example during the episode, like if you double your rates, but you lose less than 50% of your customer base, you just made money. And here's something else that nobody ever thinks about is like, you could actually get more customers, or at least replace the customers that would drop off. Because sometimes, I don't know if this has happened to you, Peter, but like I'll be looking at rates, like maybe I'm on Upwork or I'm going through whatever, Craigslist, whatever. And if somebody charges too little, I'm like, it's probably junk, or they're not good at it, or I want to make sure this is really good. And so sometimes you're going to lose customers if you make yourself too cheap.
Well, you're going to lose customers, but not even knowing that you're losing customers because you're not getting them. Yeah. So those people who are charging too little and they don't get the clients, it's very possible the reason why you're not getting clients because you're charging too cheap, and they're looking at the rates and they're like, you know what? I don't want to go to that guy because he's cheap. He's probably bad, right? Yeah. Wow. So there's something to be said about that, and looking from the perspective of like more of an abundance mindset than a scarcity mindset, because I find that from a lot of people who are not charging more than they should, they have the scarcity mindset of what if I lose customer? What if this happens? It's always like, what if something not going to happen, as opposed to what can I do? You know what I mean?
Well, here's something else, man. Yeah, totally. And here's something else. And you kind of alluded to this is I do believe that, and we've seen this, in Life and Air, for instance, like we used to offer a super inexpensive, it was like $20 a month, membership. And what we found is the people that were part of that membership were oftentimes like we had the most challenges with, and we put the most time into with customer support and issues and challenges. And so there could be something to be said for you, what's your point, what you said, are you attracting people that are better to work with and are less of a hassle and are not going to haggle you. Right. And so, that was a good point as well, man. So that was a great conversation with pricing. The other thing I really enjoyed him talking about was marketing and how this, dude, we've talked about this so many times, like you can't stop marketing. And I also love his point on the referral. And I have seen businesses that run off of referrals only, but you're really susceptible to what he mentioned. Like, if you're all referral and you get a couple bad reviews or something goes wrong or you increase your rates and somebody's unhappy, that could spread. And that could be, that could contribute to you being really fearful about getting paid what you're worth. And so I think breaking outside of referrals and having a real marketing presence, whatever that looks like for you, is pivotal. It's crucial.
Yeah. And if you are skilled, one thing I would say, if you're like a skilled baker or whatever it might be, and you're not good at marketing, look to get somebody to help you with that. You know what I mean? Hire somebody that is really good at that. And some of the things that you're going to have to learn yourself, like, he gets in front of the video and he posts stuff, being consistent. One of the things that he didn't flat out said it, but I hear in his, whole story is the whole consistency, right? Yeah. Being consistent and constantly doing the stuff, because that's what's going to get you the traction that you need for your business to keep it growing.
Yeah. Yeah. And the last big aha I got from this one was when he talked about fear and how he realized, first of all, he kind of has a realization that he's not alone, but to get out of that, he kind of just wrote about it. And so that he could share and help other people as they go through this. I thought that was really clever. Because it allows you to externalize.
Clients are going through the same thing.
Yeah. And it kind of, it's weird how sometimes you write something down and something happens in the way you process that when you have something in front of you, you can maybe analyze it a little bit more objectively, and it doesn't feel as overwhelming, and it's on paper and you're like, wow, okay, now I get it. This makes sense, a little more sense. I thought that was really clever too.
Right. When you listen, fears that you guys have, if you write them on paper, they don't seem as scary as in their head. Yep. Put it on paper. You'll see it's not as scary as it's in your head.
Yep. Awesome, man. Well, great episode. I really enjoyed doing that. If you guys enjoyed it, leave us a review, leave us a rating, give us a thumbs up, share this. We would love to know what you think about this episode. We hope you love the show. We're here to serve you. And we will see you guys next week. Also, before I forget, don't forget to come over to the Life and Air closed Facebook group. This is an awesome conversation place to have discussions about any and everything related to creating a life or business you love. So until next time, guys, we'll see you next week. Take care.